And Dana Jacobson is here with more, a beautiful remembrance of a colleague,
a beautiful man,
ours, for sure.
Yeah.
As good a human as he was giving, a colleague and talented, a professional, to be sure. And it's striking to hear him say that sports being a part of his soul kept him alive. It certainly seemed that way.
Yeah, when I talked to him this summer, it was just before he was going to work that NBA Finals game, the first one ever for him, because Turner Sports has never had the finals, and that's why people were like, why would he not get this opportunity? Well, his network never had the finals. ESPN and ABC said, come aboard for this game. When I talked with him, he was really clear about that people would ask, why are you still working? You have to go to chemo. There were days he would go for treatment, and then he would go to the game. And I talked to his crew. I knew his crew, and they said he'd show up. How are you even here? He knew why. That was helping to keep him alive. The same way his wife, Stacy, his 5 kids, all just kept him going all the time.
You've done it. Sideline reporting can so often be thankless.
Yeah.
It is arguably the single most difficult thing to do, to make your moments matter, to make them count. And really, and I'm not saying this because he's a beloved figure who is no longer with us, he may have been just as good as anybody who's ever done it.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw the colorful suits, and that's what stood out, and that's what you remember. But he was very good at getting to the point, of being succinct, of making sure to ask that question that no one else wanted to ask. I heard 2 great remembrances from broadcasters that had worked with him yesterday. Brian Anderson, who's a fellow play-by-play voice, had also worked in San Antonio, and he would say that, when everybody didn't really want to ask Greg Popovich that question, they knew Sager would, and they'd wait, and they worked off of what he would do, because he'd be in the news conference, and he'd ask the question. And then Mike Breen, who's been a longtime play-by-play voice and works for ESPN and also works for the Knicks, he said the thing about Craig Sager was he might have a note, and you said it, as a sideline reporter, you get your moments sometimes, but not always, and you have more notes than you're ever going to get into a game. He had no problem bringing those notes to his fellow broadcasters. He didn't care who was using them. If it was a good note, it should be in a game. And I know that as a broadcaster, watching him and seeing him when I was in local TV, that's how you learned. You learned to do it the way that Craig Sager did, because it was the right way. So yeah, he had that impact on all of us. And even, Josh, if I can say this, he had the impact well beyond people in the sports world. He was in Philadelphia working the NCAA tournament. And there was a gentleman who's at the garage area near the art museum. He ran into one of my partners from the broadcast team, stopped him and said, you have to tell Craig Sager hi. Tell him, and I can't remember the name, but it may have been Dan. Tell him Dan near the art museum says hi, because Craig would always go there and say hi to him every time he was at a game in Philly. A
relentlessly joyous person.
Yeah,
and a joy to be around. The best of us.
A fighter, a real fighter.
And we're going to miss you. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.